Clint, good to talk to you about the butterfly effect because I never thought we'd hear your name and the butterfly effect together with a new record for a long, long time because last time was 2008.
Yes, I know. It's been a long time. Look, you've had to wait longer for a Butterfly Effect album than you would for a Tool album, and that's saying something, isn't it?
You do realise that the last album was in 2008. If you're planning on doing this every 14 years, we have to wait to 2036 for the fifth Butterfly Effect album.
Paul, could I tell you, I've been saying this to a lot of friends of mine and people that I know. We've got 5 songs in the bank already behind this album. So there is new music happening behind the scenes that we've put together. We've demoed it up. And so just for all the listeners and people out there and for yourself, there is new music behind this one. We've already talked whether we're going to do an EP or album. So there will be new music and you will not have to wait 14 or 15 years to get the new release on the Butterfly Effect. So I'm really excited. It's great. It's a great time. And can I just say, I know it was a really not a great time to be around through all the COVID business, but I know a lot of bands that went to ground and pretty much they wrote more songs than they needed to be releasing at this time. So I'm really stoked to be releasing this album out on the 2nd of September, as you know, but also to have new music behind it. So there's going to be more, and we're not going anywhere. We're staying.
Okay, so if we track this album back, I guess 2017 was when you started to get motivated again with the Butterfly Effect, and there was talk way back then of new music. Was it because COVID came along and jumped in the way? Did that sort of interrupt the release schedule for the Visiting Hours album?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was man, it was a tough time, but we would have planned to have released this album maybe a year or two earlier. But obviously with COVID and everything, it just wasn't feasible and didn't make sound economic business to release anything when we couldn't tour it. So we had to hang on to it, but it gave us time to really hone the songs that we loved, and we weeded out some songs that were a little bit perhaps weaker than the others. And when we were putting the album together, I listened to track to track to track the whole album through, and I thought, man, that's a really good piece of art there, and I really loved it. So yeah, it was a blessing and a curse, both in the same, in the same hand. So, but man, we're super stoked to be able to present it to everyone. It took a little bit of doing, and the guys, we all work with separate producers. We all went our separate ways, which is kind of odd for a band. Because normally you'd expect us to work in the same environment at the same time. But everyone wanted to choose their own producer. They wanted to work with who they wanted to work with in their own time. But I think that actually worked in our favor because we get to chip away at it song by song and get the best out of it.
I guess that's where technology has advanced over the last 20 years. Going back to 2003 when you were doing the first album, how did that work with the band? Was that everyone in the studio at the same time with one producer?
Yeah, it was interesting actually. 2003 begins here. We did a very similar thing, although we worked with the one producer, but we chipped away 3 songs at a time, and that was kind of important to us to give everything the required amount of energy into that song, so we knew that we were getting the best out of it. Also, as a vocalist, and I'm sure people out there that are listening, like I couldn't do 10 or 11 tracks in 10 or 11 days like some people do. It was just beyond me because of the velocity of the notes that were coming out of me at the time. You know what I mean? So we did 3 songs at a time, and it gave us the ability to properly lock down those 3 songs, and I could just like belt it as best I could. So yeah, very different, but still great result at the end.
Absolutely. The three albums, 2003, 2006, 2008. So, like, your tenure with the Butterfly Effect, it actually fitted within an era of the first decade of the 21st century. Here we are now in 2022. Does album 4 and album 3 just automatically knit together?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's an evolution, like as you know, like just aging and evolving as a human, you know what I mean? So it's an amazing piece of artistry to go from where we came from the EP to the like album to album to album. Um like there's a lot of growth, a lot of maturing inside that, and I think the break that we had when I left the band in 2012 to 2017, I really needed that. Like, you know, mental health was not talked about. You know, like we weren't having the conversations that we are today, and I didn't understand like where my head was at. I was in a really dark place, and I think the amount of toxic or toxicity inside the relationships inside the band was really telling. So having that break and then coming back was amazing, and now the band is probably in a better, I would say we're in a much better place than we've ever been before. We're all getting along heaps better. The songs are really amazing, and our ability to communicate is heaps better. So watching that progression, there's a lot of angst, a lot of darkness on Begins Here, and then we move through to Imago, Final Conversation, and Kings, taking the break, and then back now. I'm super proud. It's so good. I'm loving it.
Mm. Because those last two albums, the second and the third album, were both top 10 albums in this country. There was a song, A Slow Descent, that also got to number 9 on the Australian ARIA chart. There you go. You were a pop star for a minute there, Clint.
You know what? It's interesting because when we released Imago, it was the number 2 album on the charts and behind Eskimo Joe's Black Fingernails Red Wine, which was amazing. I love that album. It's great. So we were the number 2. But you know what? It's interesting that it still wasn't being played commercially, which I thought was interesting because we got tagged with the metal. They just said, "Oh, you know, you guys are too metal. It's not in our format." And so it was very difficult to get across the line. But I'm super proud the fact that we had a number 2 album, and it's interesting because, you know, it was a great run of Australian music at that particular time. I mean, being with the Eskies at number 1 and number 2 for a few weeks at the top of the charts is incredible. And I think that's it says a lot about the Australian listening public. You know, they definitely knew what they were you know, getting into, and it was good. It was great.
Mm. This band, even after you left, had a fan base, and they continued on with a new singer. How much attention did you pay to having someone else in the band as the lead singer of the Butterfly Effect in that short amount of time?
Yeah, it's a good question. A friend of mine sent me the track that they released after I left, which was called Eyes Down with Paul, who's a friend of mine, and I really respect Paul a lot. I think he's a great vocalist, and I really respect him for taking on the role of the front man of the Butterfly Effect. That wouldn't have been an easy, you know, ask, and not small shoes to fill, so to speak, not to, you know, sound to blow my own trumpet. But yeah, it was an interesting time. I listened to it, and it to me, it wasn't quite the band that I remember, and that's like, I'm just being honest. But I respected what they were doing, and I really enjoyed the fact that they kept going. But yeah, it was difficult. It was kind of like seeing your ex-wife or ex-girlfriend or ex-partner, I should say these days, with somebody else, and that wasn't pleasant sometimes. And I just had to stop watching. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, when you get on socials and you see your ex-partner with somebody else. I was like, no, that's not for me. I don't want to see that. I wish them well, but go forward.
Yeah, like interesting analogy. But you know, while they're off doing something with a new partner, you had songs of a delicate nature. There was Like Thieves. You were still being very creative.
Yeah, yeah. I just look, Paul, I don't think that I could do anything else, and that's something that friends of mine have said, or people that have known me from back in the day. You know, where I come from, a small mining town in central North Queensland called Moranbah, and people have said you never gave up, you never stopped doing what you loved, and I think, you know, it's like I tell my children. I've got teenage sons and a young daughter, and I just say, do what you love every day. And it's like I got told, you'll never work a day in your life if you're doing what you love. And that resonates with me every day. So I just keep saying, do what you can, do what you love, because life's too short to do something that you're not interested in.
Mm. I was always amazed that they kept it a secret after you left. You went in 2011. No one knew until 2012. That was the best kept secret since Bill Wyman left the Rolling Stones in 1989, and no one knew about it until 1991.
Yeah, and we did the farewell tour in 2012, and I just really needed to take a break. I was at my wit's end, and I still remember the day that my partner at the time, well, now ex-wife, but she said to me, she's like, "Who are you, man? Like, what are you doing?" Because it was so dark. It just gotten to a point where, we weren't communicating as a band, we weren't friends anymore. And that's tough because it's really difficult to make music and be creative with people that you're just not interested in being around. So, and I mean, we would spend a long time in the band room. We'd be in there for 4, 5, 6 hours a day. And that's tough. As anyone out there listening to this would understand, that if you're in a particular situation that you're not into, it's very difficult. So, the break was warranted. And even Ben said to me, our drummer, after I come back, he said, "You know what? We just should have taken a break, just a couple of years, just put the band on hiatus for a little bit." But then, how many bands come back from hiatus? Not many.
Hmm. It would be interesting if the Beatles ever thought that. That was the big question after everyone saw the Get Back movie. What if they just took a couple of years off? Would they have got back together in 1971? They probably would have,
100%. And you know what? I think about the music that they would have made after that, like coming back from a short break. Oh man! And still to this day, "A Day in the Life" is still my all-time favorite song.
Mm.
It's if ever there was a song I had to listen to over and over again, it'd be that, followed closely by Pink Floyd. Well, pick anything really. You can take anything from those guys. But yeah, you're right. It would have been different, and I wonder if they would have kept going, and I wonder if John would still be alive, and I wonder if that would have put him in a different place on that fateful day.
Well, when we get to the other part of the multiverse, we will find out.
I love
An interesting interview. We talk about the ex-band, the ex-wife. I'm, hearing some barking in the background there. Am I, Clint? Is there's not a worried ex-dog thinking, "Oh no, I'm next."
That's my little dog. It's I inherited him from my kids. They wanted to hang on to him, and yeah, I just, you know what? I was never the pet guy. I was never the dog guy. And I was always like, no, we're not having any pets, no dogs. And now I've got the dog. He sleeps on the bed with me. He goes everywhere with me. I've
What sort
become
of
that
dog have
guy.
we got down there?
I got a little toy cavoodle. His name's Sniffy, and he is the light of my life. I love him to
Oh.
bits.
Hello there, Sniffy, and welcome to the interview.
He's like camped out on the cushion down beside me. He's loving it.
Excellent, Winston. Winston, where are you? Come and say hello to Clint.
Oh yeah,
Winnie,
I'd love to do that.
here we go. Here we go. He's come to say hello. Up you get.
Oh, I love him.
Say hello. Say hello, Winnie. Who have you got to say? Look, you got a little friend, Winnie. You got a little friend in there, Winnie. Yeah. Hey, Winnie, do you want to go to a butterfly effect?
Seriously, my favorite dogs. I love them.
Winnie wants to go and see the butterfly effect.
I'd love to.
I'll tell you what, the way he barks, if you ever leave as lead singer, he barks just as loud.
I love it. I love it. Dude, can I just tell you, I was never a pet guy, and I've just become the biggest softie ever. I'm super soft. Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, good to talk to you, Clint. Great to see we're going to be seeing the band from September 20 doing the rounds of Australia. I do have the dates here. Starting in Cairns. You are starting in the warm areas and working your way down to Melbourne, aren't you?
We thought we'd throw down the challenge early in the day and really put it out there. So yeah, it's Tanks Art Centre at the end of September, which you know what, it's great because all of the crew, and all of the guys are going to be. Oh, there goes my dog. It's gonna be a good one because we really wanted to make sure we hone the show and give the people of North Queensland who don't get to see many bands normally a bit of love, which will be great.
Excellent stuff. I'm just looking at your tour dates here, and yes, it does start at the warmest and work its way down to the coolest. So you have definitely planned this show around the Australian season.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm excited. Like everyone's really into it. Man, I tell you what, my dog is going off. There's somebody outside. Yeah, no, I'm really excited, and so is everybody else. Starting in Cairns, I think is a great way to kick off the national tour, and they get to see it first before anyone else. We've got a few things planned. We've got some special bits and pieces. So yeah, it's going to be a great night.
All right, good to see you.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.